Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We all think we know history, right? The stories we learned in school, the epic tales of heroes and villains, triumphs and tragedies. But what if I told you that a lot of what we know is just the highlight reel, the polished, sanitized version? Today, we're peeling back the curtain to uncover the dark, hidden truths behind some of the most famous historical events. These are the secrets they definitely didn't teach you in class. So grab your popcorn because things are about to get real. Let's start with a story everyone knows, the Salem witch trials. We picture a town gone mad, accusing innocent women of witchcraft. But the why is far darker and more complex than simple hysteria. Sure, religious fanaticism was a huge factor, but let's talk about what was really going on behind the scenes. Salem was split into two factions. Salem Town, the wealthier merchant class, and Salem Village, the poorer farming community. Tensions were sky high over land, resources, and social status. It's no coincidence that many of the accusers were from the struggling village, and many of the accused were from the prosperous town. The accusations weren't just about religion. They were a weapon in a bitter class and economic war. Some historians even point to ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye, causing hallucinations and convulsions, as a possible trigger. The bewitchment might have been a very real, very physical illness that no one understood. The truth is a toxic cocktail of social strife, economic jealousy, and possibly even a medical mystery. Next, let's sail across the Atlantic to the grand, unsinkable Titanic. The movie paints a picture of a tragic accident, a collision with an iceberg on a cold, dark night. But the full story is filled with disturbing what-ifs and corner-cutting. For one, there were multiple serious warnings about the massive ice field the Titanic was steaming towards. These warnings were received, but some were reportedly ignored or not passed on to the bridge in time, all in the name of speed. The captain was under pressure to make a record-breaking crossing. But it gets worse. Remember the scene with the binoculars? It's true. The key to the locker containing the binoculars for the lookouts was missing. The officer who had it was transferred off the ship at the last minute and forgot to hand it over. The lookouts had to rely on their eyesight alone. And let's talk about the ship itself. Recent analysis of recovered metal from the hull suggests that the rivets used in the construction were substandard. The company might have used lower quality iron rivets in some sections to save money. When the ship hit the iceberg, these weaker rivets likely popped, allowing the hull plates to separate and water to flood in much faster. The Titanic's sinking wasn't just a tragedy. It was a cascade of human error, arrogance, and corporate cost. Now, how about the American Revolution? We learn about the noble pursuit of liberty and the fight against taxation without representation. While that's part of the story, a huge, often ignored motivation for many wealthy colonists was debt. Seriously, debt. Many prominent founding fathers and plantation owners, including Thomas Jefferson, were deeply in debt to British merchants and banks. A war for independence wasn't just a war for freedom, it was a chance to wipe the financial slate clean. By breaking away from Britain, they could nullify their massive debts to British creditors. Furthermore, there was the Proclamation of 1763, where the British Crown forbade colonists from settling west of the Appalachian Mountains to avoid conflict with Native American tribes. For land speculators like George Washington, who had invested heavily in Western lands, this was a direct threat to their personal wealth. The revolution, for many of its most powerful backers, was as much about protecting their financial futures and expanding their fortunes as it was about lofty ideals of freedom. Let's fast forward to the Cold War and the space race. We see it as a glorious scientific competition between the USA and the USSR, culminating in Neil Armstrong's One Small Step for Man. But the origins of America's space program have a deeply dark side. The architect of the Saturn V rocket, the very machine that took us to the moon, was a man named Wernher von Braun. Who was he? During World War II, he was a member of the Nazi Party and a leading developer of the V-2 rocket, a weapon of terror launched against Allied cities. These rockets were built using forced labor from concentration camps, where thousands of prisoners died under brutal conditions. After the war, through a secret program called Operation Paperclip, the US government recruited von Braun and over 1,600 other German scientists, engineers, and technicians to work for America. Their Nazi pasts were often deliberately sanitized or erased. So while we celebrate the monumental achievement of the moon landing, we have to grapple with the disturbing reality that it was built on the foundations of a Nazi weapons program and the expertise of a man who served the Third Reich. It's a classic example of a nation prioritizing progress and power over morality. Finally, let's talk about the Great Pyramids of Giza. The image we often get is of thousands of slaves, whipped and worked to death under the hot Egyptian sun. This dramatic picture, popularized by Hollywood, is almost certainly wrong. But the truth is, in its own way, just as fascinating. Archaeological discoveries, including entire villages for the workers, have shown that the pyramids were likely built by a skilled, paid or at least well-cared-for labor force. These were not slaves, but Egyptian citizens. Their skeletons show they ate well, received medical care, and were buried with honor near the pyramids they built. So, where's the dark side? It was a form of state-controlled labor, possibly a kind of tax. During the seasons when the Nile flooded and farming was impossible, peasants would be called upon to work on the pharaoh's massive construction projects. It was their duty. They were part of a vast, all-encompassing system of belief, where the pharaoh was a god on earth, and building his tomb was ensuring the stability and prosperity of the entire universe. So while they weren't slaves in the traditional sense, they were cogs in a massive theocratic machine, their lives and labor entirely devoted to the glory of one absolute ruler. It's a different kind of darkness, the darkness of total ideological control. History is never as simple as it seems. Behind the celebrated events and heroic figures, there are always layers of ambition, greed, desperation, and moral compromise. These stories aren't meant to diminish the achievements, but to give us a more complete, more human, and sometimes more unsettling picture of our past. What other historical truths do you think need a closer look? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.